She's the smart one. How's everyone doing today?
Good.
How are you?
I'm great. So glad to be here.
Okay, so I thought, this is my second time doing a panel with Irene, and the last time, we just kind of kept it very casual and just chit chat, and then if you guys have questions towards the end, we can do that as well. Is that good with you?
Yeah.
Okay, Irene, so tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I just can't.
Probably don't
So my name is Irene Bedard. My father was stationed up in Alaska. He was French Canadian and Cree Indian, and he got stationed up in Alaska in 1965, right after the 1964 earthquake there that lasted 5 minutes and was a 9.7. And then he met my mom, who was from the village of Quig, Alaska. And so my Cree name is Iron Woman, and I have Iron Woman Productions. And my Inupiaq name is Budairuk. It means when he dropped. I went to school initially for physics and philosophy. That's why I like this one. But I then went to Philadelphia to the University of the Arts and became a storyteller. So that's what I consider myself is a storyteller, and I've had the chance to be able to tell the stories of so many different Indigenous women for the last 31 years. And I'm very proud and honored to also have a 20-year-old who is about to be 21, I should say, who's about to start in music and storytelling himself. So it's something that we as Indigenous people think of, and that's the understanding of deep time, that what we do today affects the generations to come, that we are the love of 1,000 ancestors, and that we are part of everything with all these little fur and feathers and sea creatures, and we're the stewards of this earth, and it is our opportunity in this life to take care of everything and each other.
Well, that was beautiful. Okay, so before we get to all the Disney goodies, can you tell everybody what other projects have been your favorites, or anything that you would like to bring up as far as your career-wise?
It's kind of like asking what my favorite child is, but I'll tell you what my favorite is now, because we were on strike last year, so we couldn't talk about any upcoming projects at all. And I have a tendency, I would say, because I just went to the premiere for Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Netflix series. I play Yagoda, who's the master waterbender instructor, the teacher, so I got to revisit Tai Chi and revisit, my love of the ocean, the water, and water is life kind of thing. So, I'm co-produced, or I produced, so I also co-produced with John Leguizamo and our director, producer company that did a 4-part miniseries that kind of shines a light on what happened to Indigenous children in America. I have all these projects that are out and coming out this year that I haven't been able to talk about. Like, for instance, I did a film called Smoke Signals with Chris Ayres, director, all Native American, mostly all Native American cast, and Native produced and directed. And we just did the meta sequel to it, So I played myself, which, or the comic version of myself, I suppose. So that's been fun because I'm about to also start doing a comedy. Finally. So I'm very So yeah, generally what happens to me is whatever I'm working on right now is my favorite. So I have some things that I'm working on right now that I can't talk about that I'm so excited about. So
We'll be excited to hear it when you can talk about it. All right, let's jump over to Disney, shall we?
sure.
Okay. I mean, because we all love Disney. So you are Pocahontas herself, which is amazing. So tell us a little bit about how your journey with Disney started and how you became Pocahontas.
My very first film was a Disney movie. Now, I'll just be clear too, being, especially at the time when I was coming up, I mean, it wasn't even in my wheelhouse of thought that I'd be doing film and television. This black girl from Alaska, my big thing was getting to write theater and do kind of what is known as ritual theater, which is what I grew up in my life, in my world. Like our dances surrounded the mountains and the water and the ocean and the animals and our spirituality, our connection to the earth and our connection to the Great Spirit, our connection to each other. And that was my biggest thing, was I wanted to write and do theater and do theater that would, involve our audience into taking care of the planet, into taking care of each other, into reconnecting, remembering our indigenous hearts and minds, that we are part of this planet, that we are. Now, did you know that every single blade of grass has cesium-138 in it? Every creature, every living creature, when we drop the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs, every living creature is now connected through that. And that to me shows just how connected we are, and that we've just forgotten about it. We've paved over it. And so this is our time to reconnect with one another, and that's why I love telling stories. Well, so that's what I was doing. I was writing theater, and we were performing all over New York City with our play In the Spirit, and my agent at the time came to see one of our performances and signed me on that night, and 3 months later I was there working on a Disney movie called Squanto, A Warrior's Tale, and I played Squanto's wife, Nakuma, and I was there on this giant epic set with tall ships and everything. We did go over schedule, so my next project was a project that was produced by Jane Fonda. She did a series of historical Native American figures, and I was supposed to do Geronimo, but we went over schedule, and so that brought me in the wheelhouse of thought for another project she was doing, Lakota Woman Siege Ni. I had a little minute between ending one film and going into the other, and I was in New York City, met with Mike and Eric, and Mike and Gabriel, Mike and Eric. We had so much fun together doing that during that audition, that we laughed, my cheeks hurt, we gave each other hugs at the end, and I thought to myself, I think I might have gotten that. And I was on the set of Lakota Woman in South Dakota when we did our very first recording sessions in somebody's basement studio. I mean, a sliding glass door, the whole deal. And we did the first scratch tracks for Pocahontas there, and I recorded for about 2.5 years, about every other month or so, and I've been in the Disney wheelhouse from the start, so I guess that's how that happened.
So it took two years to record your part.
2.5.
2.5 years
Yeah.
for Pocahontas. Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, Pocahontas 2, I think I did 3 recording sessions, and that was it. Yeah, the first they were, building. We were discussing the fact that Pocahontas was probably somewhere between 11 and 12 when she met John Smith and stopped a war from happening. Now, that to me, I thought that's the story here, that anyone could be a hero or a heroine, that a child stopped a war from happening. That's why we refer to her as the Peace of Pocahontas. And we even did some work in that vein, but I believe at the time that the powers that be really wanted to have that kind of older figure that knew, that was more in her own self, and a little bit of that romance as well.
Well, you have to have that. So when you recorded, when you did your role for Pocahontas at the time, now did you ever think it would be what it still is today? I mean, the fandom for that movie and for your character is still so huge. Did you ever imagine that it would be this big?
No, I mean, it's the world's largest premiere ever in the history of filmmaking up until then, and I believe until now. 110,000 people in Central Park, and no, there's nothing that can prepare a person. And, I mean, of course, I grew up in Alaska. Every Sunday night, my family would get together and watch Tinkerbell go over the, and it was our kind of family get together to watch, every week's Disney adventure Sunday nights. And so, of course, I had an idea that, this was part of the Disney legend world. But, again, here I am going on 30 years later. Has it been more than 30? It's been more than 30 years.
Time really flies, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. And yeah, I guess I wouldn't have had the foresight at such a young age to really completely understand it. But yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad you were here. So what has it been like for you personally to watch this still continue and to still, see little girls in the park looking for Pocahontas, or little girls that dress up like her, or when you get to meet your fans? What's it like for you to see that it's still so beloved after all this time?
Well, there were so many things about the story that were important in so many ways. She didn't wait she was the one who, quote unquote, saves the prince, at the end of the day. And even in Ralph Breaks the Internet, when all of us princesses reprised our roles, it was the princesses who saved the day. And I think also just to be able to go into the world and the thought process of our indigenous minds, that we are all connected, that gold is not what is important, that the creatures are as important as we are, that our relationship to the earth and our elders and the coming generation is important. All of those were depicted and were given, where there was a light that was shined on that indigenous mindset, and I think that's what has lasted at this point. Even beyond the historical inaccuracies of the project, which did cause, some conflict. But, what stayed is that was the first introduction on a worldwide level for a whole generation of people. And so when people come and they and my dog's vet, she just asked me about everything, and just had burst into tears, and because growing up that was a character that she related to, and to be able to be a part of that, it's kind of like getting to be Santa Claus your whole life.
All right, so I'm going to throw you a curveball for just a second, because this is something that's important to me personally. So, as far as women in the industry, what's it like for you? And I know for me, right, let me rewind. It's important to me to have strong women figures and to have that representation, whether it's business, whether it's acting, whether it's, you know, whatever it may be. How important is that to you to make sure that that presence is known?
The strength of women,
Mm-hmm.
I think no matter what, from the very start, I realized that in a way I was going to have to come to set and be an ambassador for Indigenous women, and that even the characters and the lines, that I knew that there would be some teaching that would go along with that, some peace building, but then the main thing was to flesh that person into a 360, three-dimensional person who loves, who fears, who has family and presence of mind to survive. Because, you know, as an Indigenous female, a lot of what my storytelling has been about, you know, those hardships that historically Indigenous women have faced. What I feel like right now is that we're in this next level space of having more than 4 venues to show and tell our stories. So, you know, with the Netflixes and the streaming, we're getting to see more and more of the fabric of what it means to be human, and we have more and more chances to do that. And so, having had to spend so much of my life in this strength, you know, what I am really looking forward to at this point is getting to do our comedy. Like I said, I think that is it's its own form of strength. My Inupiaq values, beyond humility and community and a respect for the land and the creatures, is humor. It's one of our 12 values is humor, because it's what connects us. We're able to kind of look at something that could be, you know, dark or hurtful inside of us, and make and turn it into laughter. You know, tickling is a form of pain. It's a form of torture.
I second that.
But you know, I for me, like, getting the chance to be able to move into this space of laughter and humor is really amazing and fun. And you know, it's why I love doing animation. I love laughing. I mean, I love it when my cheeks hurt, you know, and my belly hurts. I love smiling, and I think it's what connects us is our laughter. And so yeah, I feel like I've had to add the strength, or bring the strong, right? You know, I have a friend who asked me once, you know, Irene, what are you praying for? And I said, I'm praying for strength. And she said, stop doing that. Pray for a clear path. You know, and as soon as I kind of change my mind and structure of that into a clear path, like, it becomes so well lit, you know. I can run down that path. I feel like Pocahontas scenes.
Okay, so I want to make sure that we have time to take audience questions, if that's okay with you. But before we do, is there any current project or where they can see you that you can talk about right now, or what's coming up?
Oh yeah, so I have the Green Veil, which is the project I was telling you about, the 4-part series. Avatar: The Last Airbender, I played Yagoda, and that just dropped on Netflix. How to Blow Up a Pipeline. It's based on a book, and that's what that's about. I have several projects that I just put in the can right now, but Hey Victor, which also, again, is comedy. That's gonna be having its limited release coming up here soon. The Redeemer is set in the 1800s, and it's just it's an amazing film of the strength of women, again, you know, yes. And oh, I know I'm forgetting something, and I'm going to be like, oh, why didn't you remember that? But On Sacred Ground, which is about the about what it means to suffer with PTSD and how we can work on that, but also set in when Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people worldwide went to Standing Rock to protect the water.
Very interesting, good, okay. So now we know where to find you and what to look for. So I would like to open it up to questions from the fans. So, okay, go right ahead.
Okay. Are we gonna line up?
No, I'm just, we're casual here, go ahead.
Okay. Hi Irene.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming. Your dress is gorgeous. It's very colors of the wind. It's so pretty. I grew up loving Pocahontas. I was 4 years old when the movie came out.
Oh.
So I'm a huge fan. I was always a little saddened with the ending of the movie. And I was just wondering if you could have chosen an ending for Pocahontas that was different than the movie, what would you have chosen?
Well, the thing is that was what was true to history. When John Smith left because of his wounds, she didn't ever hear from him again, and she thought he had actually passed. She was given that, you know, she didn't know he was alive till she went to England because she was presented before the King and the Queen, and she went there on behalf of her people to, as peace building. That's why we refer to it as the Peace of Pocahontas. And when she discovered that he was alive, she didn't speak for an hour. And finally, when she did speak, she said, when you were a stranger in a strange land, you called my father, Father, and now I'm a stranger in your land. I shall call you Father. So I don't know. I like, because of the, you know, of the world where we're dealing with history, but we're telling a fictionalized version of it. I think it was probably the best ending and the most positive ending because it was full of hope. You know, I mean, I know for many it was like, oh no, they're supposed to get together, but you know, the fact was that she was probably 11 or 12 and he was probably closer to 30, and there probably wasn't a romance, and that she did end out. I mean, her life was much darker than the world of what was portrayed there. She was kidnapped multiple times. She was married in more of a political world to John Rolfe as far as peacekeeping goes. And you know, I think that was probably the most positive story ending that they could come up with in the face of that. So I don't know that I would have changed it.
Disney twist.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else have a question?
Yeah, so thinking of that Disney twist, Disney's been criticized for how they presented Pocahontas and the changing of facts. As a Native woman representing Pocahontas, how do you feel about the story? Are you happy with it? I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
So as far as the Disney twist, she was asking about historical accuracies and inaccuracies. You know, I mean, it was something that we discussed all along the way, and ultimately the story is about peace building. seeing each other as humans, before and realizing that what is important is family, is connection, and our relationship to the earth. Which is why I thought it was really incredible to have a tree, an ancient tree, both represents the earth and our connection to the ancestors. We feel that when we are laid to rest, that we do become those things. That our ancestors are a part of the trees, and so to me that was what was important. And what was also, I think any form of communication is good as long as we continue to have intelligent discourse and listen to each other, listen with our hearts, and so I think ultimately it made a lot of teachers go out there and tell the true history, probably many more than would have happened had that story not been told, or the inaccuracies were as blatant as they were. And so ultimately, in retrospect, over the time, I think it's done more to help those parts of it than it has to hurt. But it did receive the MPAA rating along with Gone with the Wind the same year for racism, and mind you, that was part of the story within there. It's why the song "Savages" was even existed, right? But it also shows how far we have come along over the decades to look back and say, it's something that needs to be addressed and looked at and discussed, and so I'm glad for that. Ultimately, it's brought forth a lot of discussions. Even at the time, there was a lot of, conversation around how if Barbie was alive, she would be like 6'6" and have a 13-inch waist and a double E, and that she would tip over. And that conversation came out of how Pocahontas looked in the film, and she was touted as being extremely beautiful, but it saddened me at the time that was the conversation. But then now, we see that sort of similar conversation having to still occur with the movie Barbie. So I think we are all taking steps along the way toward each other through these stories. And so like I said, I believe any form of communication is good.
Mentioning Savage, hi, I'm Rachel. Mentioning Savages, I was wondering, the soundtrack is so wonderful and so important to probably all of us still. And when you're singing Savages, do you think that song stands up in the political climate, and that we can feel okay yelling things that we really don't necessarily want to yell anymore, barely even human, things like that? You don't want to get caught necessarily singing that song out loud, I feel like. Is that okay?
So I was the speaking voice. Judy Kuhn was the singing voice.
Right.
And she's continues on Broadway, an incredible Broadway voice. I didn't know about that song until I went to see the scratch track version of it. And it gave me pause, because I knew that there would be children running around singing "Savages, Savages."
And it's hard not to love the song, of course.
Well,
The soundtrack.
Alan Menken, knows how to create a tune, that's for sure. Ultimately, that's what the song is about. It's about seeing each other as not human, and not having people that we love, people that are our parents, that we are daughters, we are sons, we are parents, that will do anything for our children. We all need to have those hierarchy of needs and food and a roof over our head, and being able to see that, what we all seek is love and connection. And I think that ultimately that's what the entirety of the movie is about. This is why Pocahontas ended up in the history books, because she represented that peace, the peace of Pocahontas. My name, Irene, she was the goddess of peace. So I feel like in some ways, I was kind of put on this earth at this time to participate in these conversations. And so I think it's very important for us today to look at how we can build those bridges to each other and not burn them.
Yeah, I'm curious, when you were doing the recording, were you recording by yourself, or did you ever record with the other actors or actresses ever?
Well, as I mentioned, my first scratch tracks were when I was filming, and all of it, for Mel Gibson, I've actually never met him. He didn't come to the premieres because he was filming Braveheart at the time, so I did an entire film, romance even, with someone that I've never met. And that is, our imaginations. Mike and Eric also being that strength and that through line, working with each one of us individually, from Linda to I did one recording session with Russell Means, who really wanted to have that interaction. He wanted it to be more of a play off of each other, a little more relaxed, So that was the only recording session. Other than that, it was me alone with a camera. So they filmed every recording session and used that to animate expressions, and she does this. My brothers were like, "Oh, that's creepy."
Just a small two-parter. My first question is, were you already a Disney lover before you came into this role? Did you have a favorite Disney character? Did you have a passion with Disney before you became part of the character voices?
Yes, I definitely, I'm still to this day a huge Jodie Foster fan. I grew up, that was my favorite movies, my nights with my Sunday nights with my family, getting to kind of live in that world of where everything turns out well at the end. I think we need a little bit more of that today in this world in our storytelling, and that's one thing is, even if I am when producing or directing, working on something that shines a light on some of our darker sides and our darker stories, that it's always it's a beautiful life version of it, that we can thread the needle through and see the good in humankind. Humankind, remember? So yes, I grew up loving Disney and kind of knew when I first saw the castle, I'm like, oh wow, this is it, wow, yeah. So yes.
And my second part of the question is I'm glad you brought it up earlier, going back to Wreck-It Ralph, Breaks the Internet, doing the princess scene, which is my favorite. Can you describe about this beautiful relationship that you've come to have with these wonderful people you've worked with, like Jodie Benson, Paige O'Hara, Linda Larkin? I know that you guys are probably one big happy family. So as this journey with Pocahontas brought these wonderful people into your life, can you describe how you became friends and I'm trying to find the right words, like the, you know, like how it's all been since you guys have come.
Yeah, so I got to
All these people you work with.
meet all of them at the premiere in Central Park. So it was a little like overwhelming, but it's the best sisterhood on the planet. And to be able to have, I mean, we have a little group text that we're all also doing whenever we can to help each other whenever, you know, whenever we can, and our own kind of understanding of you know, of the worlds that we live in together. I got to, so when the announcement for all the Disney princesses being in Ralph Breaks the Internet was at D23 the year before it came out, and so I got to, so first it started with Silverman went, you know, to Jody and Paige and Linda and myself, and then I got to introduce Anika Noni Rose. It just went, as we each introduced ourselves on stage, by the end, I swear we were bigger than the Beatles. And yeah, it's a wonderful sisterhood to belong to. It's true.
Okay, we have time for one more. We have one question. Anybody? Yes.
So his second part was basically my question, but kind of follow up on what you just said, and in regards to Ralph Breaks the Internet, that group text that you have, does that include the other company too?
Oh, the rest, no, this is Linda, Paige,
Just straight
Jody, myself, yeah.
The others too.
I would love to add them to the group text. Actually, I believe we are in May, and I forget where, are doing a Disney Princess reunion, so hopefully some of the other princesses will be there, so, yeah.
All right, well, we thank you so much for taking the time. Everyone, please be sure you visit Irene at her table to continue conversation, or have her sign something for you, or all the fun stuff. So thank you, Irene. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming to the panel.